We are?
Well, we are, but I know. Do you know what I was just doing?
No.
Come on. You know that one. That's the Bill O'Reilly thing. We'll do it live.
Oh.
You don't know that for real?
No, I don't think so.
I'm so disappointed in you.
Maybe it's just not that. Maybe it's just not that funny.
Well, you know we are live now. Everybody heard that, I believe. Okay. Let me refresh my thing here. I'm going to see if you showed up and if I can tag you. Let's hope.
Mine's scheduled to go live at 4. We're not quite there yet. We're a minute away.
All right, everybody, come on in. I'm going to edit this and I'm going to tag you just in case.
I'm live on my end.
Yep. So mute your Facebook though. That way we don't, because I can hear myself talking back.
You're good. Hi, everyone.
Hold on. Let me tag you here. Nick Bailey. Give us 1 second, guys. We're letting everybody come in here. Here we go. All right. I just tagged you. Boom, boom, boom. All right. What's happening, everybody? Come on in.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Jared.
Hello. Oh, yes. Like as if we just got on here. Yeah. Hey, Nick. How are you?
Are you not going to look? I wore my shirt for this is my people's holiday. You're not even going to.
Well, that's better than when you showed up. Nick had no shirt on. Okay. And it was blinding. It was blinding. Okay. Whatever you see up here, it is even whiter down below.
Oh, yeah. Very funny. I just thought you'd want to wish your leprechaun friend a happy St. Patrick's Day.
Well, I wish you a happy Leprechaun's Day if you wore the appropriate Lucky Charms hat like I asked you to. Okay.
But this is 4 p.m. Eastern, and I did get a text from someone that wants to make this a drinking game. So if you're out there enjoying St. Patty's Day, every time we say NAR, you take a drink, and we'll see who's left by the end.
Oh, my God. Yeah, go for that. A couple of things here, guys. We're going to give everybody a couple minutes to come in. We actually started a little bit early. I will tell you that as you're watching this, do us a favor, guys. We're going to have a little fun, but we're going to talk about something that's not a fun topic, but it's a topic regardless. I see we already have 800, 900. The numbers are rising right now, so that's cool. Hit that share button, guys. Share this, comment, let us know where you're coming in from. We're going to try to keep up with this stream. We're going to answer questions. But share this out to your network. Share it publicly. We want as many people as possible to hear this. We really have one goal today. We're not selling anything. We're not anything, we might be taking up an offering for Nick. But outside of that,
what's that supposed to mean?
I'm sorry. Outside of that, we're here just to help. Okay. And we were going to go super casual, but then right beforehand, Nick decided to get ready for a job interview and put a jacket on.
Very funny. All I can say is, hey, I've been officially out of the industry 72 hours, and look what happened. Gosh,
everything fell apart. What is going on? Good Lord. And by the way, for anybody listening right now, all of your jokes about being work friends right now, what's this then? We're still talking.
What's happening? I don't know, because I've only referred to you as one of my best industry friends, but I'm still in the industry. So I think,
well, I'm betting on you getting just a big time job. Otherwise, I'm dropping you. I mean, for good,
that's my worth.
Yeah. You know, what's funny? You texted me the other day to do this, and I had already taken you out of my phone, and I went, Colorado, who is that? I was trying to figure out who the number was. Yeah. I was like,
well, I'm glad you admitted that this was my idea, because there's no shortage of those over here.
No shortage of what? You taking credit for ideas?
Okay, should we get started, man? People are still rolling in, but I was
gonna say I think everybody, guys, comment, let us know you can see us and hear us. Like, there's always going to be some kind of tech issues with some people, but if you can hear us, comment in there, let us know. One more time, hit that like button, share this with your network. Just hit that share, because we're trying to help as many people as humanly possible today. We always have a little bit of fun, as you guys can tell. But hit that share button, like it, comment, let us know you can see us. I'm actually looking at the comments. I'm going to be looking at them throughout here, because I just want to make sure, again, I'm thinking based on the fact that nobody's reporting mass outages or anything, that everybody can hear us. So that's really cool. Yeah, we got a lot of people on here, man. We're up to thousands right now. So I guess we should button it up.
I want to hear about it. Well, let me start with maybe a couple of ground rules. Number one, neither Jared or I are attorneys. This is not intended for legal advice. This is two friends and guys in the industry that want to share their opinions, because there's, as Jared and I were talking, there's so much misinformation when change happens like this. And so we want to kind of put it in three buckets. We'll talk about the settlement itself of NAR. And then kind of second, how does this affect the overall market and the business? And then third, we want you, if you're an agent or broker, to walk away today and have 2 or 3 things that you can really focus on, which is what needs to happen instead of just hairs on fire. And I can say that.
Literally. By the way, I'm loving these comments. You'll have to go back to them later and check them out. But yeah, guys, we're kind of chilling it out today. I didn't even do my hair. This is called, Let It Go. My best Disney on Ice there, Let It Go. But yeah, just here to help you guys. So what did I say to you when we were doing whatever? I said, oh, I didn't even really get ready. I haven't shaved. And you're like, yeah,
you didn't have to say it. It's pretty obvious. Okay, I classed it up and celebrating St. Patty's Day. Okay,
nice.
Let's jump into this. So, Jared, let me ask you the first question. What would be your headline of the event that's happening?
The headline. Let me take that a little bit different than just headline, because there's been a lot of headlines the last few days. I put something up on, I don't know, Instagram or TikTok or all the platforms yesterday talking about all the headlines lately. And let's just start off, because we have people that are on here right now that are from the industry. We have people on here that are just consumers, that are just in here to hear what we have to say about this whole thing. And let's just be very clear. The one place that you are not going to actually hear what's going on is the headlines. The headlines, years ago, the term fake news came out. And my God, it's never been more obvious. The headlines I've seen lately, the thing I posted on Instagram yesterday and TikTok and whatever, was from CNN. It was about the death of the 6%. The fixed 6% is gone. NBC News, same thing. New York Times, same thing. This settlement, which we'll get into a little bit, and I also want to say as well that there's some stuff you guys are going to ask us about, very specific to NAR and how that works, whatever, that I may say, hey, let's hold on that, because I had a conversation with Kevin Sears on Saturday, the president of NAR. I was at my son's soccer tournament. And in between all of that, him and I had a conversation, and we're most likely going to have a public conversation in front of all of you to answer your questions, very specific to NAR. So we'll do that. But headline itself, the headlines are not accurate. Yes.
But what's your headline?
What's my headline? Meaning my headline to agents, or meaning my headline that to consumers on which end?
Just in general. Like, I'll give you mine. My headline is, folks, this is nothing to worry about. I know this. I've been in this business nearly 30 years. People buy and sell houses every single year, and both buyers and sellers are willing to pay trusted advisors to help them with the process if they're good.
Well, Nick, that was the whole thing with the whole article yesterday that I posted about the 6% is gone. And it's like, well, first off, this was never about that, because fixed pricing, the idea that agents are colluding, agents can't even get along during a transaction. Now you have millions of them colluding on, pricing. I mean, it's absurd. But here's what you need to understand. We are going to have to educate the public, because yes, they are reading those headlines and thinking that they are accurate, even though they are not accurate on any level. But prior to this settlement, we'll talk about the settlement, people could pay 4%, 5%, 6%, 7%. They can go discount brokerage. They could go for sale by owner. And guess what? After the settlement, people could pay 4%, 5%, 6%, 7%, discount brokerage, for sale by owner. None of that changed. When you look at what was agreed upon within that settlement, what changed was that the offers of compensation in a private portal known as the MLS, meaning that you have to, it's a members only portal. It is not for the public. Private offers of compensation will no longer be allowed in the MLS. That does not mean that sellers can no longer compensate. But I also want to be very clear about something else. All of the talk has been about, well, seller is paying the buyer. They're paying the listing agent, and then they're also paying. That is not how that agreement reads, how it's ever read. That commission was between the seller and the listing agent. And then there was a little sub-article, a little sub-paragraph that says that the listing agent is allowed to share with a buyer broker if they bring the buyer, okay? And so none of that changes. It's just how it can be displayed in the MLS, and we'll get into that. But there's so much misinformation right now that as a professional, which how many years have I been saying? Pros versus amateurs. Well, the only way that you have an opportunity to prove who's a pro and who's an amateur is you play a real game, and there's a scoreboard at the end. And we now have our opportunity to play a real game and let the pros separate from the amateurs, because now's the time when you're going to be able to actually educate the consumer, be a pro, know what to say, know when to say it, and really provide value in a way that, look, I don't agree with what just happened in our industry, but it does bring an opportunity, and we'll talk about that. And it brings an opportunity of separation. Okay. So yeah.
Well, and when you say that, though, here it brings up a memory for me, because most people know I was an executive at Zillow for a number of years when the Zestimate was a hot topic, right? And agents hated it. It was, oh, we hate the Zestimate, it's not accurate. And people would just get vicious about it. And I kept saying, this won't be a popular comment to many agents out there, but it's the truth, which is, it's not that you disliked the Zestimate. What you disliked was it created an objection for your seller that you had to learn to overcome.
Correct.
And so when we get down to the nuts and bolts to say, what we do as real estate professionals is we problem solve and we overcome objections. That's what we do. And so this to me is kind of a change that goes right into that same bucket.
Nick,
but
by
let's
the way,
talk about,
let me just say something on that. The coach side of me comes out. Like when I hear objection, the majority of agents, the majority of professionals, when they hear objections, the majority of salespeople, when they hear an objection, it scares them a little bit, because they look at an objection as a rejection. Okay. An objection is not a rejection. An objection is a consumer saying that I'm willing to extend the conversation, right? And conversations are how we win in any business, no matter what you're selling. The point that you need, the time that you need to be scared is when someone just goes, no, I'm good. No, good. No, they're not willing to extend the conversation. But anytime somebody's willing to extend the conversation, they're saying, here's my objection, because I need you to justify in my head why I'm doing this. And I need to know what to tell other people why I'm doing this. And so any chance we have an opportunity, keyword opportunity, within our industry to create more objections, that's why it separates pros from amateurs, because those objections extend the conversation and give you the ability to actually talk it out and prove your worth with them, which is even more valuable. But you have to see it like that.
So let's talk about the settlement itself. Okay, so here's some quick bullet points that I'm sure you can read the summaries that are posted online, but it creates a release of liability for just over 1 million of the 1.5 million members. So people are asking, why did it not cover everyone?
Why not all, Nick?
You got to remember, Jared, some of the companies like Anywhere, Remax, and
by the way, you came out looking good from your previous job when you settled early, and everybody was like, "What are you, nuts? Why are they doing that?" Now you look pretty good.
Well, I appreciate that. But there are some people that are covered by it. Now, Home Services America is still a defendant in the case. Will they settle? Who knows? They might. And then there's questions about companies that are 2 billion or more in volume were excluded. Why is that? And then let's talk about non-realtor MLS associations or non-realtor MLSs. The reason, this is Nick's opinion right here, not facts, just my opinion, is the reason that the 2 billion and above is because many of those companies, which by the way, there are only a couple of dozen out there that are not covered by either the NAR settlement or Anywhere, Remax, or Keller. And so excluding home services. But what it does is there's a mechanism built into the settlement that there's a formula on which they can pay a settlement fee and then be included in the release of liability. In my opinion, this was the plaintiff's way to say, we don't want to go to the long tail and have to negotiate settlements. Let's just give them a formula to say, if you want to settle and come into this settlement fund, you can do it and then get a release of liability. So I'm going to throw out an estimate. It'll probably generate $100 million more for the settlement fund as a result. And the same thing with the release of liability that goes to not only the members, but all realtor MLSs and associations. If you have an MLS, this is a question that's not part of it. There is a mechanism that MLS can agree to change the rules, follow what the settlement rules are, and pay a per subscriber fee within that MLS to the settlement fund, and then they can be included in the release of liability as well. So I think what we're going to see is, A, this was a way of plaintiffs to get more money out of other brokerages, 2 billion and above, and
Yeah.
B, getting more money out of MLSs and associations that are not part of NAR. So I think that's just to enhance the settlement fund. Just my opinion.
Yeah. Again,
And then
opinions. Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I'll have the NAR president on in this next week here, and we can get very specific. But yeah, it's a good theory. I mean, who's making out on all of this? The attorneys.
they always do. They always do. But now let's go back. So now it's going to require that you actually have a buyer agency agreement signed before you take people to go out and look at property. Okay. I remember when I was selling real estate full time 25 years ago, and dual agency in the 90s, folks, if you weren't selling then, was like this hot item. And because we were going to get rid of dual agency, which has been eliminated in many states, but not all, it was in the state I was practicing. And people said, now agents are never going to double end a transaction again. Well, that's not true. It changed our disclosure statements.
Correct.
We started using buyer agency agreements 25 years ago to say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, we just want you to understand who has the fiduciary relationship when,
Correct.
depending on what listing you looked at, what office you looked at, and that agency relationship could change to a transaction broker, customer, intermediary, depending on what property we made an offer on. And so I think that this is just another of the same, that it's what a lot of people are already doing, which is putting buyer agency agreements in the hands of their buyers before they even start working with them, so that the buyers understand the process. That, I believe, is a good thing. It's going to create an objection that you're talking about compensation as part of that, but it's not one without the right training you can't overcome.
Correct. Now let's actually, because we didn't actually talk about what the settlement is, right? Now there's a lot of parts to the settlement, but the two main things that really affect the industry overall is the idea that no more offers of compensation. And by the way, this hasn't been approved yet. Now it's most likely going to get approved. Let's be very clear. It hasn't been approved. Everybody's talking like it's been approved, but it's most likely going to get approved, and it goes into effect way quicker than anybody thought, mid-July. People like me and others were like, yes, we need to think about it, but it's years away. It's, whatever, right? So you're talking mid-July, and the two main things that affect agents are going to be the idea that no more offers of compensation within the MLS, okay? And keep in mind, guys, that's almost like the commercial world. That's like the LoopNet world. That's like this isn't unheard of. I don't love it. I don't have to agree with it. But at the same time, that's what that world looks like. And the second thing is written agreement when it comes to buyer representation, which, by the way, a lot of places that a lot of you are in right now already require that. Some do, some don't. Again, not the end of the world, but the headlines you're seeing are not accurate as far as like what this was really all about. The one thing I want to say about that as well, and we'll get into this more with the NAR president, a lot of people are going, well, why did they do this? Why did they settle for this? Understand, I put out a video weeks ago where I said, these lawsuits I'm not that worried about them. Then the DOJ got involved. And when the DOJ got involved, I'm like, well, that's the one to worry about, because it doesn't have to make sense. We don't have to agree. They can just do it. And when NAR stepped forward and said, all right, we're going to settle and we're going to do this, we're going to allow this, we're going to make these changes within our industry. Personally, I think they were making a step as like a good faith to be like, you don't need to go as far as you wanted to go. We're going almost there. Let's make an agreement. Because if you look at what the DOJ wants, and they put this in writing, they not only wanted these changes, they want our industry to go completely hourly, meaning no longer paid based on incentive, based on selling. Now, I want to say for a second, all of you for a second, think about our industry on an hourly basis and what that looks like, okay? What does our industry look like when you go, and I would love to see a show of hands from so many of you that have shown houses for 10 months and then they never bought anything and they didn't pay anything. What does our industry look like when you start invoicing them for properties they didn't purchase and they don't pay? And now you have broker lawsuits against consumers. That'll look great on our industry. And what does our industry look like when an agent, I know there's a lot of great agents listening right now and watching right now, but there's a lot of not great ones too. What's the industry look like when they're incentivized to have a difficult transaction? They're incentivized for the buyer to not get their offer accepted. They're incentivized for that transaction to take as long as it possibly can, to the point where you go do a walkthrough, it's not broom clean. And instead of being like, I'll credit you $200, we'll get this sucker clean, let's get it done, they go, you can't let them take advantage of you. You need to get the attorneys involved here. We got to make sure they will not take it. Because the longer it goes, the more they're getting paid. That's not good for anybody either. And so what we need to understand is, while we may not agree with what's happening within the industry, there's also perspective on what could be. Hourly is already an option, and there's a reason why so many people don't do it right now. There's a reason why it's not a great option and people aren't taking advantage of it, because it's not a good thing in our industry.
It's not. Every transaction's different. And when you say that, Jared, it reminds me, I have 2 words for you. It's called rose beetle. When I sold real estate, I actually think my broker from 25 years ago, Glow REITs, might be watching. She'll know this story. I sold a 4-unit mobile home park to an investor, sight unseen, for like $30,000. Well, it was an elderly lady, nice as can be. Took us 8 months to close it. First off, her name wasn't Rose Beetle. She was never married. She just used the guy she lived with's last name, and he liked the name Rose and called her that. It took us 60 days to figure out what her legal name was.
Wait, was that his last name, or was he calling her a beetle? I'm confused.
He just made up a name, and he was gone, and she just kept going by that name. Anyway, it was the craziest transaction of my life. 8 months. $743 was my commission on that for 8 months. But you know what? If it had been hourly, no one would have helped that elderly lady. And so I don't see it going to hourly.
Although, Nick, let's be honest, you'd probably take that job right now. $743.
Too soon, Jay. Too soon.
Too soon. Guys, think about this for a second, though. Like, when you looked at, okay, so that situation, you talk about hourly, you talk about the DOJ came out, and when they talked about doing hourly and they talked about these massive changes they wanted and whatever, they said that the current system that we operate under right now, where you offer percentages within the MLS that are not seen by buyers, that it's going to lead to agents steering buyers. And all I wanted to say was, like, 2004 called, and they want their data argument back. Meaning that war over data was over years ago. We're not steering buyers anymore. You can't hide a property from a buyer. Like, they have access to everything they want to see. It's all available to them. Like, it's not so all of these arguments. It's just, again, I want to make very clear. Those of us that are in the industry are sitting over here going, like, what are you talking about? But again, it's the DOJ, so it doesn't matter. If they want to do something, they're going to do it. But the good news is that the rules change. They change for everybody. They don't just change for me. They don't just change for everybody, which means that now it's going to be the best that's going to win. So,
well, let me get into some specifics too, because I'm with you. The professional always wins. Now, here's the choice that agents have. They can have a fixed fee commission paid directly by the consumer, by their buyer. They can have a concession from the seller, and the concession can be noted in the MLS as long as it doesn't refer to the buyer agency fee. But sellers can make concessions, which means seller can contribute to what is then paid to the buyer's agent, or a portion of the listing broker's commission. So I think here's the one thing that I want people to realize that people were nervous about was, what if the commission's totally uncoupled and either the listing agent or the seller could not participate in how those dollars got translated? That didn't happen. And so I think this comes down to, it really is the fact that it's just not going to be appearing in the MLS. You're going to be talking to your listing agent about this more. It's going to be part of your buy-sell agreement when you're negotiating. And that's just going to put it at the forefront of transparency with the consumer. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's fine. I think anyone that's nervous about it is, we all know this: price is only an issue in the absence of value. I can go out right now today and have 5 agents come look at my house. I bet I can get someone to list it for almost nothing. And then I'll have other agents that say, here's what I charge because here's what I provide. And some people have heard my story. I just sold my personal residence in December and had a fantastic agent. Like, it's hard to impress me when you're a real estate agent. And I was wildly impressed with her because the amount of service, and she took out all of the headaches. I would have told our buyer to get lost halfway through the transaction, and she kept it together. But I can give you all the details of what she did as a listing agent. It's far beyond what most people do. We have moved from a momentum-based market to a skills-based market, and you have to have skills. And I want to also say this: the nonsense of the price of housing is going to go down because of this.
I was literally going to say, so what do you say to that?
Wrong. That's not true. If there's one house for sale on my street and 10 people want to buy it, the price is going to go up. Pricing is supply and demand. And that's where I think part of it is way off base in the headlines.
Nick, I love that point, because I've been seeing that lately, and I've even seen it from some professionals, like people that are like figures in the real estate industry and stuff. And they're like, well, that means this is going to happen. And I'm sitting there going, what are you talking about? Think about the thought process behind this for a second, guys, because I'm a logical guy. Okay. You can't look at the real estate market and say, okay, well, prices are going to go up and they're going to continue to go up because it's just supply and demand. Where if you have an overage demand and too little inventory, the fact that there's too little inventory, just, there's not enough options means the prices keep going up. Yeah, that makes sense. How do they then look at our industry where the number of agents are dropping and now they're going to drop even more and go, well, now agents are going to make less? You literally took the same theory that you put against housing and did the exact opposite when it comes to agents. If the number of agents drop, what does that mean? That means that the price for that agent's probably going to go up. Supply and demand. It's the exact same theory. And so our job is going to be, because I'm not telling you guys that you're not going to run into it with consumers where they're going to be like, well, I heard now that it's just 1%. Well, I read on CNN, I read on Fox News. I don't know why I'm doing that accent. Maybe because you talked about a trailer. But regardless, though, you're going to have people who are going to start thinking that. I've seen it all over the place, but our job is now to educate them. But don't lose sight of what I said in the beginning, and Nick just said it again. 3%, 4%, 6%, 7%, fixed price, hourly rate. It was available 5 days ago. Guess what's available 5 days from now? Guess what? It's all still there. It's going to be your ability to communicate that. And I love what you said, man, skills-based market, right? We've been saying it for years about the pros versus amateurs, right? Your ability to actually communicate what it is that you need. This is now the time when a lot of you are going to need to go deep dive into your skills, and you're going to need to go deep dive into your professional development. And you're going to need to be able to communicate to the consumer why you are the better option over whatever that XYZ is. Because is this going to pull out some people? They're going to try just lowball? Yeah, but they were there all along, right? At the end of the day,
that's a blanket statement of, oh, pricing's going to down. No, you know what? For some agents, their commissions might go down. For others, they might go up. This is now on the buy side, especially going to be up to people that demonstrate their value. And by the way, that's one of the takeaways I want to share with people. I look at how hard people look at their listing presentations to differentiate themselves. Because I've said for years, this industry is a sea of sameness. It is. We are in the sea of sameness. And Lisa, by the way, said your accent was great. That's not true, Lisa. It wasn't that great. Should have had an Irish accent for today.
Wait. Can you do that again? What was that?
That wasn't good either. That wasn't good either. Back to the topic, Jared. Okay. We're getting off track.
What was that?
I don't know.
I hope, what I hope? I hope Irish people cancel you. Okay. How dare you do an Irish accent? Okay.
You can't. When you wear this every day, you are in the club no matter what. It's
2024, man. I'm pretty sure someone will figure it out that you just did an Irish accent and they'll cancel you. But, whatever.
Oh, right. Okay. Here, back to the subject. Listing presentations. People go through. We're in the sea of sameness. Agents do just listed, just sold cards. Like, if you look at a lot of agents do the same things. It's those that have figured out how to differentiate themselves and anticipate the unexpected needs of the consumer and deliver on those services before they even know it that win. And so this is a takeaway that I would say to all agents that work with buyers. You know what I'd be doing right now? I'd be developing a listing presentation that shows how are you different. When you're a buyer's agent, for example, do your statistics show in a multi-offer scenario that you are 4x as likely to get an offer accepted than another agent in their market? Because I was just reading some of the comments in some of the markets, there are still multiple offers and in price ranges, properties going for more than list. And so do you as a buyer's agent, are you great at putting those together? And that becomes part of your value prop. Here's what I also have a forecast on, Jared. I also think that this is going to vary by price range. And what I mean by that is what scares me a little bit is first-time home buyers and underserved communities, minority buyers, because we already have programs to try to help first-time home buyers, to try to help minority buyers get to the market. And now, if there's not, say, a seller concession or a listing agent cooperation at that price range, that may make it difficult for buyers. So this is where I think the agent's going to get smart, and they're going to say, if I'm listing a house at the first-time home buyer price range, guess what I'm going to say? Mr. or Mrs. Seller, understand that the vast majority of people looking at your home are most likely to be a first-time home buyer. They may not have enough for the down payment, let alone some of the additional closing costs. you would be best served to have some type of concession for that type of buyer. And the same thing happens with VA buyers. VA does not allow to be paid directly from the buyer. So if you are in a market that is serving a lot of VA customers, a lot of the coastlines, I've got Colorado Springs just down the road here with the Air Force. Lots of people work with VA buyers. Well, guess what? If you're dealing with sellers in those communities, you better be prepared that the sellers should be counseled on having a concession so that they don't eliminate that buyer from a potential pool of people that want purchase.
Nick, can you say that again? By the way, I know you and I know that. Can you say that again? Because I think there's a lot of people on that don't understand what you just said about VA buyers. VA buyers are not even allowed to pay an agent the commission, right? So there's all sorts of other things, and I plan again to bring that up with the NAR president as far as like how's that going to get around? How's that going to whatever? But there's all sorts of other issues that come in with that. So what you're doing is you're giving kind of a way around to be able to still do what these changes are, but say, hey, you can't break those rules either. VA buyers aren't allowed to pay their agent.
No, that's right. But think, we already do that. If you go in and you list a $500,000 property, your marketing likely looks very different than if you're listing a $5 million property.
Yeah.
And so you cater those different service levels to the property type that you're working with. And I think that this is just going to be another component of that. Yeah. Because we're not going to, first-time home buyers are 30, 35, 38% of a market. But here's what I also know. Here's a great example. If anybody was around selling real estate in 04, 5, 6, if you worked with new construction, you realize that builders cut agents out, said no, won't even pay them a commission.
That's right.
And I was working the Florida market in 7, 8, 9, 10. That was fun. And here's what happened. And I will never forget this. I went into an office in Florida, and they had just gotten a fax of a sheet from a builder that would not pay them 2 years before. And it said 10% bonus to bring us a buyer. And you get either a Rolex watch or a 1-year lease on a Lexus. And so we have to also remember there are only 800,000 listings out there. When we get to 2 or 3 million listings, which won't be in the next year or two, but will be down the line at some point, the way that sellers think about incentivizing people to cast a huge net to find the right buyer will also influence the decision of how people work with their client.
Nick, one more question for you. Not one more, but just I know we talked about this previously, and I don't know if we were planning on talking about this on here, but what do you say to people who say, well, look at how the rest of the world does it. This is how some of the rest of the world does it. Like, isn't this just, and I feel like you and I are uniquely positioned for this because we work with the rest of the world. Like we actually go and do, those events and such, and work with those brokers and work with them in other countries. What do you say to people who say that?
Well, I'll go first, then you go second, because I have had the luxury of working in 2 global organizations within this industry. And so we get comparisons that we're seeing in some of the media reports to South Africa or Australia or places in Europe. Folks, keep in mind, in those markets, when you visit with people that actually work those markets, there's no buyer agency, it's buyer beware. And there's confusion of even to sellers, who does the agent work for? I think we are just one generation that pretty much everyone that helped get buyer agency in this country is no longer around anymore. And people don't realize that. I firmly believe that having representation on both buyer seller side is such a huge benefit that it's these other countries are trying to figure out how to get there. So that's my take. What's yours?
Yeah, I mean, this was brought up to me a couple different times. It's kind of like when people say, well, so-and-so has this kind of healthcare. And then you see people with lines like going down the street and they can't choose a doctor. And I'm like, really? That's what we're pointing to right now? I get hired to go do these events in these other countries. And you know what almost every single one of them say when they bring me in? We're trying to westernize our system here. It's not working. It's all these open listings. And like you said, it's the wild, wild west. This one's doing this and that one's doing whatever. And so for me, it's like when this kind of a thing happens, and then I hear that happening in the media, and I'm getting those questions from people, and they're going, well, so-and-so does it that way. That country does it. And all they're doing is reading a headline from some place that whatever, when like you and I actually go to these places and we talk to the people who run those countries and run those regions and run those, and it's like, yeah, and they're trying to fix it, And so the idea that we're now going to change ours to become theirs is kind of like, guys, we're supposed to be that example of the way it can be done. But part of the way you are that example is by getting better and better, and by, making changes and then, adjusting with it. And so with that, I think that in my head, there's a lot of like what we're going to do to change with this and everything else. But I also think there's a lot of stuff that's going to come up we're not even thinking of right now, where it's like change creates innovation. But the one thing you don't want to do from all of this is allow fear to step in. It's like, well, agents aren't going to be around. And, it's just that next level of fear and anxiety and all of these kinds of things. At the end of the day, like we keep saying over and over and over again, it's really not that much different. We're just going to figure out how we communicate it. It's going to be a separator now. That's why I call this a divisible change. It's a division between, the way we used to do it, the way we do it now, people who adjusted for that. And like I said in a post the other day, change doesn't eliminate people. The inability to change with change eliminates people. And that is so crucial for everybody listening right now. Stop being fearful. Stop getting angry. Stop saying, I'm not going to do that. It's happening. Okay. Change doesn't eliminate you. The ability to change, your inability to change with that change is ultimately what will hurt you. On that note, what do you see?
I know I want to ask you about something. Speaking of that, because I agree with you. Real estate agents, brokers are emotional beasts. We know that, right? And we respond emotionally. That's why you see social light up and people saying, this is dumb. Are we moving forward? Are we moving backwards? Why is this? How did this happen? Did they protect us enough? Put all that aside. I've always said, by the way, it's funny as human nature. If you pause for a minute and say, what are you worried about? 9 times out of 10, you're worried about things you can't control. When you focus and worry about the things you can control, instead of getting loud about what you can't control, you'll get control of your business. And when we talk about value, I can see on your screen, by the way, you've got First Up. Would you mention that? I know you're not here to sell something, but no, I think it's extremely valuable. And it's an example of a reaction, because what I want to get into as we kind of sum up here are what are 2 or 3 things that people need to walk away and focus on.
So when you look at it, we're going to have to now understand, just like we sell ourselves on a listing and they're not open listings, buyers aren't going to be open buyers anymore. And so our program, our coaching program, our training program is going to change now, or not change. We're going to add a whole dynamic just on training from the perspective of buyer agency, and just on training from the perspective of getting someone to commit to you and overcoming those objections, doing that. But what you have to understand as an agent right now and as a brokerage overall is that you are going to need to be able to communicate some kind of value beyond what everybody else gives. And, the idea of the days of, I work hard. I'm going to get stuff to you quickly. I'm going to, like I've always said, that was like the batteries in a child's toy. Like I expected it to come with it. I expect you to work hard. I expect you to get me stuff quickly. I expect you to get me into places quickly. There is now going to be a pressure to move beyond, as brokerages, just having a bunch of tools that you check off and say, look what I have, look what I have, look what I have, and to actually give incentives and give things that separate your agents to the actual consumer. So when this all went down selfishly, I told you, this was great for First Up. Like this was like, tremendous, because what First Up does, a company we have, it's an app for brokerages. A lot of RE/MAX companies that, you work there. We just did a deal with Berkshire Hathaway. We work with the largest C21 in the world. What it does essentially is that it takes all of those listings, all of those properties from the time when they are listed to the time when they actually hit the MLS, and allows you to communicate those to the people in your office in a compliant manner, so you can market it to them without breaking any kind of rules through NAR or anything like that, right? And do open houses and whatever. That's a story for another day. But my point is on this: when you're talking about getting a buyer agency signed, what's a better advantage than to be able to talk to a buyer and say, you get everything that every other agent gives you. I'm going to be fast. I'm going to be access. I'm going to whatever. But I have access to a proprietary list of sellers nobody else has access to, right? In a completely compliant manner. So that was huge for us. And what brokers need to be looking at moving forward is, what are the other things that I'm going to have to do to actually give my agents a unique advantage, so they have something that they can communicate to buyers that are out there and be confident when they're doing it. They know they're not just blowing smoke. It's an actual advantage. What's going to bring agents to you? What's going to keep agents with you? And so that's one of the major changes you're going to see now, is that buyer agency now, people are going to have to be trained on what that looks like, what your actual advantage is. And it's more than just running around. So, yeah.
It's not just access, just open homes. And that's your
that
value.
game is over. So, that game of access is over.
Yeah. And People talk pricing. What's interesting, I mean, I got a billboard just out here on the interstate a few miles from my house that advertises commission rate. I mean, that's the thing I think that is kind of the crazy discussion that I'm seeing is none of that changes. There are still people that are cheap because they should be, because they don't offer much. If you don't offer much, you should be cheap. If you offer a lot more, people are willing to pay for it. So I that's one of my takeaways that I just feel so strongly about.
By the way, Nick, on that note, when you looked at all that stuff from the New York Times and all this stuff going, the 6% is gone. The fact that they're saying the 6% is over, they're doing exactly what they are accusing us of doing, which is if there's a set price. If we were to now say, well, the 6% is gone, that's the definition of price fixing. There's never been a set 6%. It could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. It could be whatever it is. All of that is just noise. That's not actually what's happening here. And that's not actually what we need to get through to our consumers moving forward and communicating what's actually happening. That has nothing to do with it.
Well, I've always said the piece that people never realize, and you have to sell real estate to understand it, is do you know how many concessions agents give mid-pending phase to get it to closing? You and I do a deal together. I mean, we'll slice each other's throat to compete to get a listing, but no matter who gets it, we put our arms around each other and say, do you have a buyer? Do you know how many garage door openers and washers and dryers and locks and that agents pay? And I sat here, I was looking last night at a spreadsheet of 25 years of commission rates, and they haven't been at 6 in 25 years. And what's interesting is, do you know the average commission rate fell in 04, 05, 06? It went up 7, 8, 9, 10. It just goes to show it's more supply and demand. And this was, the first time in the last couple of years with a huge seller's market that it dips below 4. So it all comes back to commissions are negotiable. They should be. And if you're great at negotiating your commission, you're still going to be. If you're not that good at it, I would figure out how to get good at it.
Yeah. So Nick, what do they, you got people who want to get back to their drinking games. What do people leave here with? We're going to go through, there's a ton of comments here. We'll look at these at some point as well, but what should people leave here with? Like, what is the takeaway? What does this mean? What's going on with the industry? Like, how should they feel? Is their job over? Should they be looking at new careers? Like, should they what do you think the takeaway is?
What's that comment about new careers supposed to mean?
Sorry, I know that was below the veil. I'm sorry.
No. Okay. So here's my take on what they should be walking away from. There are going to be two responses to this. There's either going to be the fear and chatter, or there's going to be what I always go back to. When there's change, your buyers and sellers, just like the change with interest rates, need you more now than ever. And I'm going to go back to what I said at the top of the broadcast, which was, I look at the Zestimate. People are like, it wasn't right. Zillow's never seen my house, right? The industry was up in arms about it. Other people said, this is an opportunity for me to demonstrate to the seller why I am the pricing expert in the local market. Well, right now, if your consumers are seeing these headlines, what a cool opportunity that you can be the expert and the voice of reason and talk your buyers and sellers on how to navigate this. Because isn't that the foundation of what we do as real estate agents? Right. Is we walk people through the scariest complex transaction of their lives.
Their most stressful time in their life, death, divorce, and moving.
And we make it easier for them. And so this is just one more opportunity to do that and sharpen your skills. Like, to me, it's just that easy. And I don't want to downplay it, because there's always change. But I remember the last one, which was mid 2000s, was IDX. And people were freaking out. Why would Jared, the loser agent that's never got a listing, be able to take all of my 100 listings and put on his website, and he attracts buyers when it's the hard work that I did?
Out of all the names, Jared?
It's just the first one that came to mind for a loser agent. But I mean, I could have gone with James instead of, but whatever. It was just one of the two. But that was a great example. And look, all it did was help consumers with marketing and access to what was for sale all the way around, and it didn't hurt agents. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not going to hurt agents. Buyers and sellers are going to be willing to pay for the services of professional advisors, regardless. Your disclosures and the way you talk about it are just going to feel a little different. That is bottom line. How about you?
Bye-bye to the hobbyists. Like, that's really how I look at it. Like, I look at I feel good about what we've talked about the last 3 years, right? Like we've talked about pros versus amateurs. We've talked about, you talk about it all the time. It's not data, it's your database. I'm going to go back to something that I was talking about a year and a half ago that I haven't talked about in the last year and a half that I should probably go back to now, which is that there is no such thing as a past client, right? There's only active clients and prospective clients. That's it. People who are actively buying and selling from you and people who potentially could. That's it. Everyone else, even after they buy and sell from you, they're still actively prospecting on your behalf based on your ability to communicate with them. There's no past clients. We have to start to view this industry from the perspective of lifetime value, right? Not that one time, not the let's see if we can get them and, you know, whatever, like lifetime value. The people that view it that way are the people who are going to win over and over again. Pros versus amateurs, pros versus amateurs. We do not have to agree with these changes in order to understand that they can benefit you. And my hunch is that people who are willing on a St. Patrick's Day Sunday to jump on something like this and learn a little bit and figure out a little bit more about their industry and figure out what's going to be best for their consumer, those are probably the types of people who are going to win in the end. Okay. So I'll have more training coming out. If you're students of ours, guys, we're going to have a lot of training coming out. We're going to make sure you're prepared, but you need to understand that while we don't completely agree with what just happened, at the end of the day, it's going to work to your benefit because it's going to separate you from that sea of hobbyists, which there's going to be no more place in this industry for hobbyists moving forward. And that's a fantastic thing at the end of the day. So that's what I would say about that. I'd also say, keep an eye out, guys. Like I said, I'll have the NAR president coming on, Kevin Sears, and we'll do a much more deep dive specifically to NAR, specifically to what that means to you. I wanted to stay a little bit away from that today just because for us, it's hearsay. It's us guessing. He can actually speak to that.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us. We just wanted you to hear, thought it was important, kind of directly from us. I think everyone's opinions matter during this time. And as people say, what does this mean? And how does it affect me?
Yeah.
I think that it's go out and sell a house, go find a buyer, go find a seller, sell a house. And that's what you're going to be doing a year from now. It's not going to change.
That's right. Where can they find you? What is it? It's indeed.com/, what was it?
Oh, of course you had to have that last. Why don't you go comb your hair next time we do this?
Come on. It's the wild look. It's all good. All right. At least I have pants on. Do you even have pants on? Do you have pants on?
I do.
Okay. You don't have to show. You don't have to show us. You don't have to show us.
Yeah,
it's all good.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Guys, we love you. We'll check out your comments throughout. We'll be checking them. I know you've got a get-together, a gathering to get to. We're going to look at the comments, guys. We appreciate you guys being on. I've already been putting a ton of stuff out on social. You'll probably have some stuff going as well. You guys can go to connectwithjared.com. I've got a ton of stuff every single day. We'll have more coming out. You know, both myself, Nick, we are committed to educating you guys, making sure that you have what you need to stay ahead. But please fear not. Take a breath. You're going to be fine.
That's right. And thanks to Ken that said we didn't say NAR enough, so his drinking game didn't go very well, but he said he kept drinking anyway. So hats off.
We didn't say NAR? Did you say NAR?
We didn't say NAR enough. NAR. Shot. Right. Okay, Jared, I always love hanging out with you. Great conversation. Until next time, everyone.
Hang on there, Nick. All right, guys. We'll see you guys.